sitting.
They got 4 sitting. And I was thinking, they should, they should have stuck it to the ground, just rare kind of buildings open.
Who else is that?
I forgot how many names got, there were 7 of them. Tiffany, Ralph and Randy, Daisy, Tate. Daisy would have been a good choice.
Hayden?
Yeah, and I think she's still on Strawberry Christmas.
Yeah, and she ran the school, the high school that we had for young moms. She, a long time high school person.
That's a great program.
She would.
Laura Gallardo. Victor's wife, Victor Longshoreman, little short guy, he just retired.
No. She didn't run for commissioner.
She did, yes.
Then I think I know who she is.
Interesting press conference. Each person had a talk, Tony Milano.
Oh, yeah, I'm surprised they didn't pick Tony.
That would have been a good choice. They were all good choices. I got up and in my best diplomatic fashion, told them how enviable of a position they were all in because wonderful candidates. You guys could throw a dart and hit any one of them and you're gonna win.
Yeah, that's good.
The candidate might not approve that procedure, but
Right?
how many
Curtis,
darts do you
Are you
throw?
recording already? Is it recording already?
Anybody see him?
I haven't seen Rich.
I haven't seen Rich or,
But you have a
He's not coming today.
Yes, we do.
Mr. Nama's not gonna be here.
No.
No, he's out.
There he is.
Oh, there he is.
And then Andrew.
Andrew's here.
Well, we can go ahead and convene without.
Sure,
Wearing a tie, too.
okay.
I think he shaved.
All right, I'd like to call this meeting to order, City Council regular meeting of February 3rd, 2020. We are going to be going into a closed session. Calling the meeting to order. Should we do roll call? Okay.
Councilmember Berg,
Here.
Councilmember Gama, absent for the record, Councilmember Rollins,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Munoz-Schnapp,
Here.
and Mayor Hernandez.
Here. Okay, public comment. Council will hear public comments for a maximum of 10 minutes. The council cannot enter into detailed discussion or take any action, but may refer the items to city manager for follow-up. Do we have any public comment cards? We do not. Okay. All right, let's resume into closed session.
You have to read the closed session items.
Oh, okay. Did you give me a script? I didn't see it in my box. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, City Attorney, would you like to read the items?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There are 3 items in closed session tonight. The first is conference with property negotiators, Authority Government Code Section 54956.8. The properties involved are city-owned property located at 241 through 245 East Port Hueneme Road, Port Hueneme, California. Agency negotiators, Andrew Salinas, Interim City Manager, Charles Green, City Attorney, Steve Kinney, Consultant with Karis Navigating. The negotiating parties are the City of Port Hueneme and Genesis, LLC. Under negotiation is price and terms of payment. The next 2, for the purposes of brevity, are both labor negotiations. They are both under the Authority of Government Code 54957.6. The agency, on item number 2, the agency designated representatives are Andrew Salinas, Interim City Manager, Charles Peretz, Deputy City Manager, and Ken McDonald, Finance Director. The Employee Association is unrepresented management. The second labor item, the representatives are Stephen M. Berliner, Special Counsel, Andrew Salinas, Interim City Manager, Charles Peretz, the Deputy City Manager, and Ken McDonald, Finance Director, and the Employee Association is the Port Hueneme Police Officers Association. Thank you, Mayor and Council.
All right. Okay, we're going to recess to closed session. And the time is 5:33. I didn't even, where did this come from, though? I didn't.
That was in your inbox.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, 6:30. So right now they're going into closed session, and then at 6:30 they'll reconvene.
He's anxious too. Good. Thank you very much. Let me look at that.
Capital A,
Oh, it's written right here?
yeah. Public access.
All right, it's the 17th. Would have been the last page. Yeah, we've got the wrong date.
The next meeting's actually on the 18th. It's Tuesday. It's a Tuesday because Monday's a holiday. So instead of the 17th, it's the 18th.
somewhere. Didn't remember. Thank you.
Make yourself a note, our next meeting, follow-up meeting is Tuesday, the 18th. One more page over there.
Oh, thank
It's
you.
got February 3, that's today.
Thank you.
Tuesday. It's Monday, the 17th is a holiday.
That's right, I won't be here. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to resume with our regular meeting, and let's begin with flag salute, please. And to heart begin. Madam Clerk, may we have the roll, please?
Councilmember Burke,
Here.
Councilmember Gama, absent for the record. Councilmember Rollins. Here. Mayor Pro Tem Munoz-Schnapp.
Here.
Mayor Hernandez.
Here. Thank you. And this evening, Councilmember Rollins will be providing the inspiration.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay. A little more than 4 years ago, our friendly city by the sea was in dire financial straits. Our city leaders were forced to make dramatic cuts across the board. Some of these programs, which had been in existence for many years, were no longer able to be funded. At that time, I was on the Rec and Parks Commission and was informed that the senior holiday luncheon was one of those that were on the chopping blocks. Together with the support of many residents, our friendly city by the sea raised enough money to continue the senior luncheon that served over 200 seniors in the area. With the help of then Assistant City Manager Carmen Nichols, we formed a nonprofit corporation called REACH. REACH stands for Recreation, Education, Arts, and Culture in Hueneme. Board members represent leaders in our community, our business community, education community, and other citizens in the community. Our first major fundraising drive that the board approved was the development of a Buy a Brick program, where people and businesses could purchase a brick to be placed in a special area at the entrance to the Hueneme Beach Pier. Again, an inspired community has risen to the occasion. On the first round, 60 bricks were purchased. On the second round, 47 were purchased. Today, we have raised over the community has raised over $20,000 from the brick program. Those funds have helped improve the quality of life in Port Hueneme. They've included Cops for Tots, the Bard Elementary student field trips, movies in the park, youth involvement fair, and the junior ROTC. We would like to thank all of you through your active giving that has inspired our community to continue that can-do attitude when faced with a challenge. I would like to call on anyone who's here tonight who purchased a brick to come up to the podium and be recognized. Is there anybody here tonight? So, on behalf of the REACH Committee, we have, besides purchasing that brick, which is down there, each we have you're one of the first to receive an official REACH bumper sticker.
cute. You need more.
Thank you, and for all of you, we still have 50 more bricks. And we raise money for all these community programs. And
Oh, there are the bricks.
please stand up. Christine. This is another, she's in the audience, this is another member of our board for REACH. She's the superintendent of schools.
All right, thank you, Councilman Rollins. All right, our next item is the agenda approval for city council.
Move approval.
Second.
I would like to make a change for the consent agenda, please, and remove the, let's see, where is it? Item on the general plan, I'd like to pull that for discussion.
What number
Item
is that?
6.
6.
Oh, okay.
So can I have approval for the council agenda? Do I do that without item 6, right?
Move approval per the recommended change in item 6.
Okay,
So moved.
Second.
Or second.
okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. May we have a report on, when do we talk about item 6?
You can, typically what the council does is they take the regular consent agenda and then they discuss the pulled item when they've completed their vote on that.
Okay, so that would be now. Okay,
Well, after, you've got report in closed session and then public comment and then there are no presentations tonight.
oh, I see what you mean, okay.
Then
I
we'd vote on,
see.
you do the whole
Okay.
consent
All
agenda,
right.
less 6, and then you take up
I
6.
gotcha, thank you. Okay, may we have a report on city council closed session action, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mayor and council, there are no reportable actions from tonight's closed session.
This is our time for general public comment. I have one card up here. We are using the 3-minute timer. So the first person I would like to call is Dolly Knight.
Hello.
Hi.
Mayor and council, city staff, thank you so much for having me. I just wanted to provide an update on the library and all the great things that we're doing. It's been a little while since I've been back, and we've done some pretty cool stuff. We recently received from the State Library an $8,000 grant to begin a series of crafting programs for adults. So our first session of that is actually going to be on February 22nd. We're going to have a local artist named Kathleen Collar teach us the art of suminagashi, which is Japanese paper marbling. So she is an artist in residence at the Santa Paula Art Museum. She's quite skilled with this. It kind of, you put paint on water and it makes it look like end papers from fancy old books. So we're really excited to be doing that for adults specifically. It's a little fine motor skills-y, so we're recommending ages 13 and up. But we'll be having those programs hopefully through September on different topics such as zine making, woodblock printing, watercolor, and fiber arts. So we're really excited to be receiving that money from the state. We also received a $2,000 grant from the American Library Association for the system as a whole to have computers for the census. Census cards are going to be mailed to households starting mid-March. Most of the census this year for 2020, they are attempting to get responses online. So for folks who do not have internet access at home, do not have computers at home, the library, all 12 library locations and the mobile library will have computers dedicated just to the census so that you can fill in the form. I'm told it takes about 10 minutes, depending on how big your household is. We're also working with the census. The census taker folks told me this is the second biggest thing that the government does besides war. So we're working with them on their hiring. They will be hiring remunerators to go to the houses that don't respond to the census survey that comes to their house. So those remunerators are being hired throughout the county. I believe they're hiring 500,000 people throughout the United States. So we'll have a census representative on site at the library on the 5th, this Wednesday, from 2 to 6. They have computers. They can take your application there and then get you started in that process. We also, for the smaller folks, we'll be having a Valentine's Day party on the 13th. So get your Valentines ready for your folks or your loved ones. That craft program is going to run to, let's see, where is it? 3:45 to 4:45. There'll be crafts and games. We also, we have moved one of our book clubs. So it was happening in an afternoon, but now it's going to be happening on Wednesday evening. We'll see how it works. Our first title is Trevor Noah's Born a Crime, and that first date's going to be on the 26th of February. Our mystery book club is staying on a Thursday afternoon. It's going to be the 13th at 2 p.m., and we're excited to have them discussing kind of a odd little mystery called Claire DeWitt and the City of the Dead. So that was our update. And I've got some calendars that I'll leave back there.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Madam Mayor? Dolly?
Go ahead.
First of all, thank you very much for your report. How are you settling in?
Great. This is a lovely community. We're really excited to be introducing some new programs and moving things around a little bit and trying some stuff. We've had some facilities issues. We were able to work with city staff on getting tented. So exciting. If you have a fridge that you would like to clean out, I highly recommend getting your establishment tented. That's a great way to do it. But the city staff was really wonderful and communicative, so we are hopefully termite free. We've also been working on some HVAC issues. The city staff was really helpful with us working on an enclosure for our HVAC on the side of, on the pathway side. So I'm told that will be painted soon, but it's gonna protect a couple new compressors. If you've been in the story time room and it was freezing, hopefully that won't happen again. We have a new compressor out there keeping temperatures set.
What kind of reaction or response have you gotten to the time change for the book club?
So we do have the original group is going to continue meeting, probably a different time than they were meeting at 1 p.m. and they're going to continue with the core group that they've had. So we're hoping to get some new faces and some new folks. We have the books available. They don't actually have to be checked out. We've used city funds for them, so we've purchased them from Amazon, and we're going to put them in a what's called a book club kit and make them available in large packs to
So it's going to
private
be like
groups.
there's going to be 2 meetings then?
They will be picking their own titles. So they'll be sort of just a general community meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay. I have another card here from Orlando Herrera, or yes.
Hello, good evening. Just had a question. We have a property here at 520 North 5th Street, and in the back, I guess it's the creek side. It's the creek. There's a fencing. It's all deteriorating. We just didn't know how to go about it. And it's along the way. It's like deteriorates, like termite eating up, and there's wood. Apparently, I took the pictures. It's
Okay.
here, so I don't know how to go about it.
All right. We can't respond, but we can refer
you
that
can-
to
yeah,
staff.
please.
If you want to talk to our city manager,
Okay.
he can refer you to the correct department.
Yeah, I'm going to refer you to our facilities director, Gabby Basua, and she can talk to you about this and refer you to the right person.
Yeah, because I had went to the county and they didn't know, it was like, because it seems to be around the creek, so I don't want to touch it, just in case if it's my property, their property, that type of thing,
Okay, yeah, she can help you with that.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right. Would there be no more cards, we'll move along to the next item. We have no presentations today. But, let's move on then to consent calendar agenda.
I'd like to move approval of the consent
I
calendar.
have to read all the titles, okay. So item number 1, approve minutes of the City Council regular meeting of January 21st, 2020. Item 2, approve finance cash disbursements for January 10th, 2020 through January 23, 2020. Item 3, read by title only, waiving full reading of text and adopt an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Port Hueneme, California, adding a new Chapter 7 to Article 5, beginning with Section 5616 to the City of Port Hueneme Municipal Code for the purposes of regulating tobacco and electronic cigarette retailers. Item number 4, read by title only, waiving full reading of text and adopt an ordinance approving development agreement number PHDA-837, major modification number 2, Hueneme Patient Consumer Collective LLC dispensary located at 501 West Channel Islands Boulevard, Suites 301-2303. And item number 5, award contract to G&H Engineering General Contractors, Inc. for the removal and replacement of broken, cracked, and uplifted sections of concrete walk at Miranda Park. And then we've pulled item 6 for discussion. So may I have a motion to approve?
Move approve.
Second. Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Now, may we talk about the general plan, okay? So, Tony, thank you for coming. I just had some questions about the general plan approach, and I see that you've, the consultants here who you've selected have selected a pretty extensive, provide an extensive proposal on what's going to be accomplished. Could you talk a little bit about the importance of the general plan and how this might inform the other plans that we're working on right now?
Sure. So a little bit of Planner 101 with regard to the general plan itself. Every agency in the state of California, be it county, city, has to have a general plan. And what it is, it's a long-range planning document, and what it does is it basically guides the development for a usually a 20 to 30-year period looking forward, and it sets forward policies and regulations, and the zoning ordinance and the zoning map should follow that general plan. So the general plan sets forth the policies for development or redevelopment, and the zoning is what actually is the laws that implement those general plan policies. With regard to Port Hueneme's general plan, it was last comprehensively updated back in 1998 when we were really strong with redevelopment. The state laws were much different than they are today. And it took us through the time period of 2015. Well, here we are in 2020, and so it's a little on the expired side. The state doesn't require us to actually expire a general plan, but it is outdated. It doesn't meet certain state requirements now. We don't, for instance, have a a climate action plan. We don't have greenhouse gas analysis that goes with that. We don't have socioeconomic policies set in place at this point. And the other thing that we are going to be required to do with regard to housing is that there is one general plan element that is required by state to be updated every, at this point, 8 years. And that new, what they call the regional housing needs cycle, we're going into the 6th cycle. We've been talking about those 125 units that we're going to be needing. That's all connected to the required housing element that also needs to be put into place by basically the end of 2021. So whether or not we do the rest of the general plan update, we do have to update our housing element. So when I talked to Rod about this a couple of years ago now, our former city manager, we decided that due to the outdated needs that we had with our regular general plan plus the housing element coming up for renewal, we decided that it'd be best to go forward and just update everything that basically get ourselves a new general plan. And what that will allow us to do is, again, to get totally up to date with the state requirements, have a housing element in place, be able to plan for those 125 new units. Right now we're built out, so we are going to have to do some significant analysis for that. It just will put us in a good place for potential future grants and other rewards that the state may put out there. And again, just basically put us back up in state of the art planning realm, so to speak.
And where do you see this plan informing the strategic plan and the Parks Master Plan and some of the other plans that we have?
Those are the two biggest. In fact, we've been talking to the consultants of each of those plans to make sure everybody is on board with that. And the Parks Master Plan is more focused, but due to its timing, it's pretty much the one that's moving quickest right now. And what that will do is form a basis for the recreation and open space elements in this general plan project moving forward. And so there'll be hopefully quite a bit of related policies that come out of our general plan based on that Parks Master Plan. The strategic plan also, we're kind of waiting to see where the consultant goes on that, but again, that'll have a certain set of goals that really deal more with, I think, the workings of the city itself that go out 5 to 10 years. Yeah, based on what we all come up with. And again, though, those can also be used as a basis for some of the policies going forward that we identify as goals in the strategic plan going forward in our general plan as well to try to realize those goals.
Okay. I noticed in the consultant's proposal that they talk about project branding and logo. Is that specific to the general plan, or is that project branding and logo, is that a new logo for the city that they're proposing, or is this just for the plan?
It's for the plan itself. And by the way, Joe Power, who is our the consultant's principal in charge, is here in the audience this evening.
Oh, good.
So,
Okay,
he
great.
can come up and introduce himself as well.
Okay. And this plan will also provide for us a local coastal plan? Is that true? Will that meet the requirements for a local coastal plan?
Yes, because we are governed by the Coastal Commission, we will need to update our coastal plan in conjunction with this project, and so that is a component of it.
Is there any part of the 1998 general plan that we're not updating? Are we updating every element?
We'll be looking at everything.
Okay. It sure looks like it.
Yeah, exactly. It's a very comprehensive update. I mean, we may be using some of the existing as a basis, but we will be looking at the entire document, including the current local coastal plan.
Okay. And the period for completion, they think they would be able to complete this in a year's time?
It's
2
about,
years?
it's a little over, it's about a year and a half or so. It is an aggressive time frame. Mainly it's to make sure that we get the housing element up to HCD and get it approved. If the rest of the project needs to go a little bit longer, it possibly can. We've had that discussion, and it depends on the community input and you know, how fast you folks want to go with this. So the general plan itself can go a little bit longer if necessary, but we are going to try to keep everything on the same track.
Okay. Could we have the Rincon gentleman come up? Hi.
Hi. Here?
Yeah, there's fine. So you're taking on quite a huge project here, and I notice we have 22 consultants who are going to be assigned to this project. Are you going to be the lead project manager for this?
I will be the principal in charge, so I'll be overseeing the whole work program, including oversight of the sub-consultants and all the team members and quality control and all of that. We also have a project manager. Her name is Lexi Journey, who will be kind of doing the day-to-day work and kind of be Tony's day-to-day contact.
Okay.
So she will be another real critical player for us.
Okay. Can you explain for the public why it is so consultant heavy, I would say? Why we need so many different players to put this plan together, what the importance is?
Well, there are just a lot of components to it, and a lot, I mean, you're dealing with a lot of issues. You have 8 required elements: land use and circulation, and open space and conservation, which covers a whole host of topics, as well as community design. And then there's a public outreach component that's very important. We want to make sure that this plan reflects the views of the community, of course. And so the outreach is really critical. So we not only have a big team of Rincon consultants staff involved, but we have a number of sub-consultants that have specialties in some of those key areas. So we have our RM design group that is kind of a real partner for us, and we've worked with them on many general plans, including an award-winning one in Calabasas a few years ago that will assist with some of the community design and the public outreach components. We have Associated Transportation Engineers, a Santa Barbara-based mobility and circulation firm that's going to be assisting with those components. We have an economist, the Nadelson Dale Group on the team that will assist with sort of market analysis to make sure everything that we're proposing makes sense economically. And so, yeah, there are just a lot of moving parts,
It's a very
a lot of
technical
components.
plan, right? It's technical.
And so, yeah, just it's a big effort that requires a lot of input from various specialties.
Yeah. And so this plan will carry us through how many years? 20 to 30 years? Is that?
Typically 20 to 30 years,
Okay.
yeah. Other than the housing element, as Tony mentioned, that's an 8-year time frame.
Okay.
The one person I forgot to mention who's really important is our housing person, Veronica Tam and Associates. We have worked with Veronica on many housing elements throughout the region. She is really one of the state's leaders in that area, and I think you'll be really, really happy with her work.
I have another question. Will this plan take a look at historical properties or potential historical properties?
We will. That is a required piece of the conservation element of the general plan, and we have in-house historians on the Rincon team that will address that issue very specifically and develop appropriate policies and programs to address that topic. Okay. Absolutely.
Do you anticipate there being a community survey of any sort?
We've talked about having an online survey. We've done them different ways. I know in some we've done phone surveys, sort of the statistically valid ones, which are great. Some people still aren't convinced, even if you're interviewing 700 people. Some people think, well, we should interview everybody, and so, you know, you get concerns about having a representative sample. But we've also done them online, and that's what we're planning to do here, where these are going to be online and at public events where we're doing polling and
I see. Okay.
at sort of on a more voluntary basis rather than sort of a random sample. But we find that we usually get pretty good input that way when we reach out in a whole variety of ways through the website, at various public events and that sort of thing.
Okay. So being that we have these different plans going on, it's two of them, the strategic plan and the Parks Master Plan, both have a community outreach component to it. Is it possible that the consultants could coordinate, you know, when they're going to go out to the community so we don't overwhelm our public with different surveys, or maybe there's a way to collaborate on those surveys somehow?
Yeah, there is actually, so far our consultants, MIG, which is our Parks Master Plan consultant, and Chris Grimm, our strategic planner consultant, are getting together actually this coming Thursday to strategize how we're going to be putting those two surveys together, because the Parks Master Plan is very focused, whereas the strategic plan is much broader, and of course the general plan is also extremely broad. So we will also be getting Christine in touch with our team here at Rincon also to coordinate that, because yes, we don't want to overwhelm and kind of overload the community with too many surveys, but we do definitely want to get their input on these this wide variety of topics that these different projects do represent.
Okay. Does anybody
And I
else
can
have
tell you
any?
coordination won't be much of an issue. The planning consulting world is sort of a small one. We know most of the players involved in the other plans,
Great.
so we know them personally, so there won't be any issues with coordination.
Okay, just want to make sure that it happens. Thank you. Councilman Burke.
Thank you, Mayor Hernandez. I had experience actually working with Rincon in a previous job before I retired. They're an excellent company. They have an all-star lineup there for us to work with. I think any issue that comes up, this is the right company to be working with. I think I understand now why you wanted to pull this off the consent agenda and talk about these people a little bit, because they are special. And I think this would be a great job.
Right, and it's a big project.
Yes.
And I think it's important for our community to understand why it's important to us.
Absolutely.
Councilman Rollins.
So the results of the different elements that you have in the total plan, will they the results come segmented, or will we wait till the very end to get them all? Or as they get completed, we'll get reports as they go along for each different element?
Well, all the elements will come together as a complete general plan that will go out for public review. So that's all going to come together, but there's going to be a whole process that's going to get us there. So we're going to have public outreach meetings and workshops and sort of existing conditions reports and things that will cover each of these topics before we get to a draft plan. So there will be a lot of opportunities for input on the individual elements and components before we get to that complete plan that goes up for public review.
So would the public be able to get like kind of updates, or will it pretty much wait till the year and a half and then we'll get the whole shebang?
We would anticipate ongoing updates via updates of the website so people could keep track of that, whether it's email blasts or things like that. We will be keeping people apprised every step of the way as we go through the process.
Right.
Yes, Councilman.
Yes, thank you. And so following up to that, Tony, do you have an idea that we would get an update every 4 to 6 months on the process here?
At least, if not more than that. And I do envision that we will have a general plan page on the website as well. Part of it will have the logo and whatnot on it, and we'll be able to also keep the public updated through that.
So that you would be coming to the city council and presenting the updates
I can
as we
certainly
roll
do
along?
that. Our consultant team probably won't for cost, but I can certainly, yes, give
Super.
you updates.
Great, and I worked with Lexi Journey. I think she was doing her master's at UCSB, and so I know Lexi, and it's good to see that she's going to be a project manager on this.
Great, yeah, I think you'll be very happy with her work.
She's a good person.
Yes.
Thanks.
Yeah, and I wanted just to bring your attention to the community engagement section of your proposal. CAUSE is the Coast Alliance United for Sustainable Economy. I think you might want to take a look at that. It's named something else in the proposal.
What page are you
Okay.
on?
Yeah,
Okay, I appreciate that.
yeah, it's listed here, has the Center for Asian American United for Self-Empowerment. And
What page?
it doesn't have a page number. Oh, 45? Okay, 45. Yeah, just I'm sure it was just an oversight.
Appreciate that, but yeah, we'll get that fixed.
And I did have one other question. So originally, we had approved the budget for $500,000, and it was dealing on 2 years, right? It was
Correct.
spread over 2 years,
Right, still is.
$250 each. And then this new proposal is that the cost is $610?
Right, so technically, we had approved two budgets. One was $60,000 for the housing element, and that was in the actual budget itself,
Okay.
two-year budget. Then through the capital projects budget that was recently approved, was that additional $500,000 for the rest of the general plan, and that is over 2 years. We added, or would propose to add, a community design element, which is the additional cost there, and that is going to be something that's tied directly to our recently approved SB2 grant that we received. And so the monies for that additional cost, above the $560,000, would be from those grant monies, and so those will be used to reimburse the general plan.
Okay,
I mean, the
great.
general budget.
To cover all of that?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else? No. Okay. I'd like to entertain a motion for approval, please.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, okay. Thank you. We look forward to seeing your good work. Thank you. Thank you for being here tonight. Okay. We are now going to be moving into item number 7, public hearing, proposed water rate adjustments, public hearing, resolution declaring protest ballot count, and first reading introducing an ordinance setting the amount of water rates and charges. City staff has conducted a preliminary protest ballot opening at 5 p.m. Those protests were open and recorded prior to the public hearing and will be included as part of the official record. The hearing is now open at 7:04 p.m. Do any members of the council have any conflicts to disclose? Hearing none. Madam Clerk, do you have proof of publication as required by law?
Yes, ma'am.
Do we have a complete file of reports and exhibits?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Will staff please present the report? We have Don Villafana. Mr. Villafana, thank you.
Good evening. Tonight we have the culmination of the water rate study, and we have followed the procedures for a 218 process, which included public outreach and a number of public workshops. Tonight, again, we're going to just run through a little background on our water system, so that once again, anybody that's here in the public will get that opportunity to see what we're doing at the previous. So for the public, my name is Don Villafana. I'm your Public Works Director. And very briefly, we want to just go, this is the route, tell us what you want to go to. Yes, I think this is very briefly a description of your water system. Our city water system consists of nearly 250,000 linear feet, or just over 47 miles of piping, ranging in size from 2 to 14 inches. We have two 12-inch potable water supply connections to a 24-inch diameter Port Hueneme Water Agency transmission line. We have approximately 5,600 potable water service connections. Those are connections like to your house. We have approximately 393 fire hydrants, over 3,000 valves. We have two standby wells and one inactive well. We have 4 emergency connections to adjacent agencies, and we have one closed pressure zone. And what that means is the city of Port Hueneme is flat, so we only have one pressure zone, in contrast with the city of Ventura that is hilly and has multiple zones. Transmission and distribution system. There's a map of our distribution system. Again, we have over 249,000 feet of transmission line and distribution systems. Just again gives you the various sizes of our lines. And where do we get our water? City of Port Hueneme is supplied through the Port Hueneme Water Agency, and this includes the city of Port Hueneme, the Channel Islands Beach District, and the Navy bases. The Port Hueneme Water Agency purchases approximately 80% of our water from the United Water Conservation District, and that's out in El Rio by Vineyard. They've got wells there, and it's groundwater pumped. And 20%, the remaining 20%, comes from Cayugas Water District, and that's state water. Now, how old is our city water system? It's aging. 30% was installed in the 1940s and 50s. 30% was installed in the 1960s. 22% was installed in the 1970s. We have a 14-inch water main that serves the northern portion of the city. That goes up Ventura Road, and that was installed in the 1940s. Maintaining our water system. As our system ages, there are more and more leaks. Over the past year, we've had well over 20 leaks, and those are just some pictures of the repair work. We've done some of the work at night, for example, on Pleasant Valley Road, to minimize the impact to the public and the Navy base. And there you get a picture of the aging infrastructure. The top picture is a water valve that we took out from Clara Street. It was put in the 1960s. It was leaking, and you can see the new valve that's down below that was installed. And this is ongoing throughout the city. And planning for the future, we have a water master plan. In 2011, the city used a consultant to prepare a water master plan laying out what needs to be done to maintain our system. And we are in the first phases of that plan. And that, I'm going to pass it over to our consultant, Steve with Raftellus. There you go.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Steve with Raftellus, and we've been working with your staff for a few years now, working on water rates. And this evening, I'll be presenting to you the proposed water rate changes. And a little bit of background, as Don said, we had 3 public outreach meetings. The first 2 were not so well attended, but the last one was very well attended. We had well over 20 people in the audience, and it was very interactive. So this evening I'm going to present to you the rates, and this is our agenda. First, I'll talk about what is funded by the water rates that customers pay. We'll take a look at current water rates, why water rate changes are needed, how the city developed the proposed rates, what those rates are, what the city did to keep rates as low as good service will allow. Probably most importantly, how will customers' bills change, and then next steps. Incidentally, this presentation is in the back of the room if anyone wants a paper copy. And I have a number of terms. I do this a lot, and I tend to throw some terms around. I don't want to alienate anybody, but we have a list of terms here that's in the written presentation that may be useful to you. The one that I definitely want to point out is at the bottom of this list. It's HCF. HCF simply stands for 100 cubic feet of water. It is the unit of water that the city bills in. 100 cubic feet of water is 748 gallons. So what is funded by the water rates you pay? A lot of people may not understand that a water utility is essentially a business, but it's a business that can't make a profit. And a water utility needs to cover its costs, and its costs don't come from tax dollars. It's not like, say, library and fire and parks and so on. It's a self-sustaining enterprise. So all the money that customers pay goes to the water utility, and all water that goes to the water utility should stay in the water utility. The water rates that you pay fund all the operating costs and the infrastructure investments for the city's water system, and we'll be talking more about that in a second. These are the current water rates. Here in this box here are the residential charges. Everyone pays right now, no matter how much water you use, $37 and change. That's known as the fixed charge. Then they pay $3.80 per 100 cubic feet of water. A typical bill is about $60. On the right here, we have commercial and irrigation accounts, and the fixed charge goes up by meter size. So you can see the fixed charge goes up here, and then they pay $4.48 per 100 cubic feet of water. This is the current rate structure. So why? Yeah.
May I just interject for a moment for the
Yep.
public, that that's a 2-month bill.
Right.
Good point.
Very good point.
Excuse me?
So why are rate changes needed? So water rates have not changed since 2012. And I'm going to ask a rhetorical question here that I don't think you need to answer, but have your costs gone up to provide water service? Has the city's cost to provide water to its customers gone up since 2012? Of course they have, right? You pay more for water, you pay your staff more, you pay more for electricity, and so on. So that's one reason why rates need to go up. So the city, as Don mentioned, purchases water from the Port Hueneme Water Agency. They charge more every year. They're your water wholesaler. You buy water from them, you need to pay them for the water that comes to the city. Probably most importantly is you have what's known as a water master plan that Don described. And a water master plan is essentially a report that is done by an engineering consultant, and it says, these are the items that need attention in your water system. And they put together a list of projects that should be done. And In this particular water master plan, the city plans to spend over $3 million a year on infrastructure repair, starting in 2020. There are a number of items in this water master plan that needs to be corrected, and the city, at least for our planning purposes, is going to spend $3 million a year on this infrastructure. Lastly, as many of you know, when we started this rate study, one of the key things that was on City Council's radar was affordability. So we're proposing some rate structure changes this evening which promotes affordability. And I'll be talking about that in a second. So how did the city develop the proposed rates? Well, we do what's known as we call it a financial plan. It's a financial model where we essentially project your revenues and your expenses in the future. We subtract the two and we take a look at what's left over. If there's not enough left over, then we have to increase your rates. It's that simple. So we did that, and we're proposing, this table at the bottom here simply says that we're proposing that in March of 2020, we're going to set rates, if they were applied for a year, that the city would collect 2% more revenue. And then in July 2020, we would set rates such that the city would collect again 2% more revenue, and I'm rounding here, as you can see. And then every year thereafter, every July, the revenue would go up 2%. Again, I'm rounding. So this does not necessarily equate to bill impacts. We'll be looking at that in a second. This is simply saying that the city's water revenue is planned to go up 2% a year. I want to give you a little more background on that. The American Water Works Association has done a nationwide study, and across the nation, water rates are going up at about 5% a year. Just want to point out that you're below the average. The reason why it's going up 5% is because as a country, our nation invested in water and wastewater infrastructure. And as you know, pipes are buried. Pipes corrode in the ground. It depends on the soil corrosivity, it depends on the type of material, it depends on when the pipe was made, but pipes usually last anywhere from 75 to 125 years. At some point they need to be replaced. So as you know, a lot of our country was built after World War II, especially in California. So all our water and wastewater infrastructure is anywhere from 50, if you live in Boston or New York, it's well over 100 years old. So it's coming due. The nation has to reinvest in its water and wastewater systems, and that's why across the country it's going up 5% per year, which is more than inflation, which has been averaging around, let's just say, 2 to 3%. Okay. This slide simply shows that we did something known as a cost of service study. It's pretty geeky to put it one way, but it's there to meet Prop 218, which says when we calculate rates, there needs to be a basis for your rates. Prop 218 says that every rate has to be cost-based, and the way we do that is with a cost of service analysis. So it takes the amount of money that you need, which is in the pot at the top here, and we do a cost allocation so that at the end of this exercise, we know what single-family homes need to pay, we know what apartments need to pay, we know what businesses need to pay, and so on. And this is done according to something known as the M1 manual, which is put out by the American Water Works Association. So let's talk about the changes. So this is your current rate structure, which I talked about earlier, so I'm not going to spend too much time here. But we're proposing a sizable change, as you know, that the city currently collects about, if you allow me to round, 60% of its water revenue through a fixed charge, that 3762. So that fixed charge is a bit elevated because you're collecting 60% of your revenue from that fixed charge. What we're proposing here is we're actually going to lower that fixed charge to such that the city collects 30% of its revenue from the fixed charge and the rest from its volumetric rates. So the fixed charge is going down, but we're not lowering the city's revenue. As you know, we're going to increase the volumetric rate. So there's some pros and cons with this. The pros is that it's less of a one charge for all you can eat. So you can say. So those who use less water, and by less I mean 6 or 7 HCF, their bill should either stay the same or go down. But if you use more water, your bill will likely go up. There's also some other cons with this, is that if there were to be a drought or a recession, now more of your revenue is based on how much people use. So the city could see a little bit more swings in its revenue, which is a function of collecting more water through its volumetric rate. Okay? So here are the proposed monthly fixed charges. The column that says current fixed charge is the current fixed charge by meter size. And again, you can see it's $37.62. If you were to implement these rates, the fixed charge would go down to $24 and change until July. Then it would go up to $25 and then so on each following July. So these are the fixed charges by meter size. And then we have the volumetric portion of your rate. And we're proposing 3 tiers, which is actually pretty common in Southern California. And the first tier is we calculated using water use from the city. We calculated the average use in winter. And in winter, there's usually less irrigation going on. So one can conclude that more than likely in the winter, it's all indoor water use. So the average single-family use in the winter is 4 HCF, so we propose that as tier 1. Then we calculate the same thing in the summer when people are irrigating more, and we propose tier 2 to stop at 7 HCF. And tier 3 would be anything beyond 7 HCF. And those are the rates that you see there below the blue table. So here are the proposed volumetric rates. Right now it's $3.80. And then the proposed rates are in March of 2020, that would go up for tier 1. So right now you have a uniform rate, what's known as a uniform rate, meaning you pay $3.80 no matter how much you use. You can use 1, you can use 80, you pay $3.80. But now we're proposing a tiered rate. So tier 1 would be $5.71, tier 2 $5.81, and tier 3 $6.65. And then it would go up every year thereafter. I should mention the city does have a single-family residential care rate. I think that's in the next slide. That's a 7.5% discount for those customers who qualify, both on the fixed charge and on the volumetric rate. And you see that in the white area here, single-family residential care. And then we have a host of other classes, multifamily, commercial, city property, irrigation, and city irrigation. And then they have uniform rates shown in the table here. And we'll be taking a look at everyone's bill impacts in a second.
I have a question on the term irrigation. Is that irrigation of just people watering their lawns?
Yeah, those are usually dedicated irrigation meters. So it's lawns. You have a city irrigation class that would be probably medians and parks and things of that nature. So there's city irrigation, which would be city accounts, and then there's similar non-city accounts, but it's the same thing. Parks, medians, grass, that type of thing. Okay, keeping rates as low as good service allows. So as most of you know, when we started, affordability was a very important consideration. In fact, when we started, we had a list of 5 special questions, if you remember, that we had to answer as consultants. All these 5 questions had to do with what could we do to lower the rates. And so here's how the city is working to keep rates as low as good service allows. First, the city is using water enterprise reserves. So the city will use cash reserves to offset operating expenses. This is pretty important because in our financial plan, the city has an operating deficit every year. I think this is important to know. You're not covering your costs in the financial plan. But this is planned because you have a decent amount of reserves, and you're actually drawing down your reserves a little bit. But you're not actually covering your costs. But it's a planned thing to use your reserves a little bit. So that's very important. The city is using reserves during this 5-year study period. Okay? The second thing that we talked about with Dawn was the spreading out infrastructure projects. That water master plan that I talked about by AKM engineers had a number of projects and assumed it would get done over 8 years. We took that and to spread costs out, if you will, we spread that over 12 years instead of 8 years. That lowers the amount of revenue that you need from rates. Lastly, we talked about a a loan that the general fund made to the water utility. And we assumed, at least in the financial model anyway, that there would be a refinancing to a lower interest rate. And that lowers the payments from the water utility to the general fund. I think I'll just leave that one there. And then lastly, we're adjusting the current rate structure to one with a lower fixed charge, which promotes affordability, as we'll see in a second. It promotes conservation and efficient water use. It does have that drawback of, if there were to be a drought or a recession, you could see lower revenues. But water, generally speaking, is fairly inelastic, meaning people do cut back, but nobody ever uses no water, right? People still have to shower, they still have to cook, and so on. So you're not going to lose 100% of your revenue, but 10, in a severe drought or recession, 5, 10% is possible. And it varies by utility. Some agencies have much more, I'll call it discretionary water that they can cut back. But here I would suspect you have small lots, small lawns, and so on. I would think here you have much less discretionary water use. This is just a reminder that there is the city care program. More than 900 households rely on the city's care programs. And it's for customers who are part of the Southern California Edison's Care program. They're eligible for the care rate. And again, this is a 7.5% discount both on that fixed charge and on the volumetric rate. So let's take a look at what it means for customers. Based on the data that we were provided from the city, we estimate that about 70% of customers, their bill, starting in March, would either stay the same or go down slightly. 20% of your customers would see a bill increase up to $20. And then 10% of your customers would see a bill increase greater than $20. This slide kind of shows the bill impact by how much you use. So in the left-hand column, I have, this is monthly, by the way. Your bills are bi-monthly, but this is a monthly analysis. So in this column, you have monthly use, and it goes anywhere from 2 to 14. And based on the water use data that we were given to the city, we're calculating that average is about 6, okay? And so we're estimating that the average customer would actually, their bill would actually go down a little bit, $1 and change, okay? And if you use less, then it should be, your bill should decrease more than that. And if you use more, I'm looking at 14, then your bill should go up. In this case, we estimate $20 and change. Okay, so that's a function of having a lower fixed charge and a higher volumetric rate. It steepens the curve, so to speak. Use less, pay less, use more, pay more. And it's a function of that fixed charge. Whereas if you had a fixed charge, it would be more, it's like going to Vegas. All you can eat for one price, right? This simply says the same thing. 70% of your customers should see no bill impact. This is care. This is for care customers. It's basically the same distribution. Average of 6, their bill should go down a little more than $1.12 you saw on the prior slide. This is multifamily residential. You have 272 multifamily residential accounts, and we're removing, right now you have a fixed charge that is based on by dwelling unit. And we're actually removing that because we're following what we think is best rate setting practices. So the only thing that matters when calculating and setting rates is what size meter you have and how much water do you use. So because we're removing that per dwelling unit charge, we think again, it depends on how much water they use, but many multifamily accounts should go down. We have one here that uses, for 6 dwelling units, uses a good amount of water, and their bill is going up, but all other multifamily accounts are going down. This is commercial. Commercial, you have 156 accounts. What we've done here is we've simply looked at each meter size and took the average use for each meter size. So we do estimate commercial accounts will go up. Again, it depends on how much water you use. I think the one that I do want to point out that we struggled a little bit when we were working on is the one at the bottom, the 10-inch meter. I believe that's the port. As you can see, the port uses quite a bit of water. 2,000 something HCF, therefore their bill will be impacted. Then we have a handful of other accounts. We have city property, irrigation, and city irrigation. And again, here we took the average use for each account, and it goes up and down again here depending on how much water you use. Just looking at city irrigation, I'm looking at 11 and 21. That's not a lot of water, so the bill's going down. Then I'm looking at city irrigation, 90 and 206, using more water, that bill is going up. So I believe this is the last slide. Again, we had public information 3 public information sessions. The Prop 218 notice was mailed to every parcel, and if approved tonight, rate changes will be effective March 1st, and customers would see changes beginning on their March or April bill. And that concludes the presentation, and I can take questions.
Okay, does staff have any questions? Does council have any questions?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I went to the last public meeting that you had to sort of share this information, and there were a few people in the audience that were just bewildered because they didn't know why their bills were so high when there were only a few people living there, and they thought they weren't using anywhere near as much water as perhaps they are. Are there any kind of educational programs or things that the city is going to follow up with so that to help people's bills go down lower when perhaps maybe they have leaky pipes that they don't know about, or there's a bad meter, or whatever it may be, so that, they have a better understanding of why their rates are going to be the way they are?
You want to take that now?
Let me answer that, Councilman Rollins. If a resident feels that there's an issue with their water bill or water meter, they just have to contact the water division, and we'll take a look at it. We would swap out the meter, change out the meter, and see what if that was a difference. We've got the records. We manually read the meters. City staff doesn't do it. We contract it out, but they're manually read. So we would check the records, and with respect to leaks, what we typically would do is have them shut off all their faucets in the house, and then see if the meter is still turning, because then there's a water line leak somewhere on their property. So they would have to, if they suspect that, though, they're responsible for plumbing past the meter. The city is, from the meter to the main, it's the city's responsibility, and of course the meter is the city's responsibility. So if anyone here in the audience or anyone watching the meeting tonight feels they have an issue with their meter, just contact the city water division, and that information can be found on the city website, and we'll take a look at it for it. And we always have conservation information available. We've done, Public Works has done a number of public outreach at the food truck events during the spring and summer. We have a Public Works booth out there with information on water conservation, and we'll be starting that again in April. So, but if they want water conservation information, they just have to contact the water division, and we can send them out.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from City Council? I have a question regarding the Fox Canyon Groundwater Management Plan, which is reducing our allocation for water. Did that in any way help determine our water rates? Was that in any way considered? I know that we'll be conserving, this is kind of a way to conserve water by increasing rates, but was there any plan to?
Well, this study has been going on for quite some time now. I think it's probably close to 3 years. So I I think we set rates based on however you were buying water 3 years ago. So if this Fox Canyon water management plan is maybe, I don't know, 1 year old, 2 years old, then it's probably.
Brand new.
It's brand new. So then it's not reflected. But I wouldn't, personally, I wouldn't let that be paralysis, because a rate study, you do the best you can with the knowledge you have at that time. You take a snapshot, you set rates, you move forward, and then things change the next day. So I would say in your next rate study, take care of it. That'll be in the next rate
All
study.
right, I have another question about replacement. Does any part of the agency's budget go toward infrastructure replacement?
Yeah, you have, like I mentioned, you have $3 million that you're scheduled to spend every year.
And that is paid through our
rates,
and it's
Yeah.
a specific line item for replacement. That's how we accrue the $3 million annually.
Well, it's part, you have a capital line item in your budget, yes,
Okay.
for water.
Okay.
And it's going to vary from year to year, right? You may not spend exactly 3 a year, but on average, hopefully the city is spending $3 million a year.
Yeah, so as we collect the revenue from the end users, yeah. So thank you for the presentations that we've had tonight. You know, I remember years ago when I first began serving here in 2008, we had just done the water meters, right? Where we had to actually have water meters installed, because before then it was an all-you-can-eat program. People just paid, everyone paid one rate, no matter if they used a little or a lot. And the water meters then allowed us to gauge how much water had been being used, but it also then set in a need to do a water rate study. And so I remember that first time, Councilmember Breeze and I were on that committee, and we knew that those rates would only carry us through 5 or 6 years. And we knew we needed to get off of the one price covers everything, but really start implementing more of a, pay for the usage that a person, a house, dwelling has. And we realized that going from flat rate to fixed and variable, that we wanted to make sure that we turned the corner so that most of it was not fixed, that there was going to be more of the variable. So this actually is part of that whole large plan that we had, is to make it so that it was much more where people could consider conservation, where folks could maybe, install some, lower use kind of water systems, or, whatever in terms of appliances and other things they might use. But it also then put the onus on the end user to say, hey, if there's a drought or if there's other things that you want to adjust, like spend less for your usage, then it was up to the individuals to do this. And so this is a larger plan of where we actually did want to go, and we wanted to take our water rates to.
Yeah, is there a way that you can briefly describe the CARE program? I'm assuming that's if you have limited income, you're able to tie into that where it has the reduced rates?
Yes, that's true. I don't have the specifics. I do not know the specifics. I would have to check with our billing department and what the specific criteria are for applying for that. I certainly can get back to you on that in a day or so and provide that information to council. I do not have that tonight.
Okay.
Well, my understanding is that if you qualify for Southern California's gas care program, then you qualify for the city's care program. So if somebody comes in and say, hey, I've got I'm on SoCal's care, then they're on the city's care.
So basically, if you have a limited income, there's a reduced rate for you.
Yes, 7.5%. The fixed
Correct.
charge is down 7.5%, and your volumetric rates are down 7.5%.
Okay.
It's also listed on our city website with a link for application and all that. It's on our city website.
Okay, thanks.
Are we providing our public with anything regarding recommended ways to lower your water bill? Like ways to reduce your use of water?
We have general conservation information available, but that's primarily what we provide, is recommendations on how to conserve water, not letting the tap run while you're brushing your teeth or shaving, just general conservation information that's been out there and available for a number of years.
Right.
I've been talking about putting on possibly in the next several months as we hit the summer months. Because of the drought, some of the building codes have changed and allowed for gray water usage for landscaping and irrigation, where it was not allowed before. The County of Ventura Building Department has excellent handouts on those, and I was thinking of incorporating those into our own program. And that's some of the information I'm planning to have for our Public Works booth at the upcoming food truck events, a display and recommendation, how to use gray water, how to tap into water from your bath and that, or from your washing machine. So those were some things that we were planning to do for public outreach in the summer and the spring.
Thank you. Any more questions? Staff, okay. At this time, does anyone from our audience wish to address the council on this matter? Please, if you do, please come forward. Do we have any cards? None? Okay. If staff has no further comments, if there's no further discussion, we will go ahead and close the public hearing, the time being 7:40 p.m. May I have a final protest ballot count for the record, please, Madam Clerk?
Yes, ma'am. As Mayor Hernandez notated earlier, we did a preliminary opening of the protests at 5 p.m. Several of our staff members who helped me open those are here. I'd like to take a minute to thank them. It actually takes quite a bit of time to review and qualify each protest. The prima facie preliminary count indicates that 367 valid protests were submitted prior to the public hearing. 3 protests were delivered to the box at the back during the public hearing, which we've checked 3 times now. 16 void protests were submitted. Those were due to incorrect or no address provided. 13 duplicative protests were submitted, which would be a double per address, for a total of 399 protests submitted. Just for the record, the final protest will be, after we go through and indicate all of them and verify every single one of them, they'll be notated on the City Council minutes, on the resolution, should you adopt it tonight, and will be posted on the city website. 3,161 protests would have needed to be submitted to qualify for a majority protest, so I can confirm that an inadequate amount of protests were received and council can continue their consideration.
Okay. Well, seeing that we've received an insufficient amount of protests, City Council may now continue consideration of the new water rates. We have before us a recommendation to take the following actions at the close of public hearing, following final count and confirmation that insufficient protests were submitted, allowing continued consideration of proposed water rates. Take the following action. Number 1, hold a public hearing. Do I need to read that part? Okay. Number 3, adopt a resolution of the City Council of the City of Port Hueneme reciting the facts of the Proposition 2218 mail protest process held, declaring the result and such other matters as provided by law, which we've just done. Number 4, introduce the first reading by title only and waive further reading an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Port Hueneme setting the amount of water rates and charges pursuant to Health and Safety Code Section 5471. We shall entertain a motion at this point. May I have a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
And we'll take a roll call vote.
Councilmember Burke,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Munoz-Schnapp,
Yes.
Councilmember Rollins,
Yes.
Mayor Hernandez,
Yes.
and Councilmember Gama is absent for the record.
Okay, and this is the first reading, correct? All right, moving on to item 8, councilmanic salaries, ordinance amendment and resolution providing health, vision, and dental benefits and matching contributions to the city's ICMA 457 deferred comp plan to members of the city council. The hearing is now open at 7:43 p.m. Do any members of the council have any conflicts to disclose? None? Madam Clerk, do you have proof of publication as required by law?
Yes, I do.
Do we have a complete file of reports and exhibits?
Yes, we do.
Okay, will staff please present the report? Then we have Assistant City Manager Charles Peretz here.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and council members. For the record, Charles Peretz, Deputy City Manager. Agenda item number 8 seeks the council's consideration of an ordinance amendment and adoption of a resolution pertaining to city council member benefits. Deliberations for the 2016-17 budget included a multitude of cost-saving ideas. Included among the measures approved was a reduction in benefits provided to council members, specifically the elimination of city-paid insurance premiums and matching contributions to the city's deferred compensation program. Now that the city's budget situation has improved, staff has been asked to present a report regarding a proposal to reinstate these benefits. The action proposed tonight involves an amendment to Section 2010 of the Port Hueneme Municipal Code as a first step. Such amendment would allow benefits other than salary to be set by resolution. Any such action would be effective after the date following the date of the following municipal election. The resolution proposed tonight would make council members eligible to receive health insurance and provide a premium subsidy which is equal to the lowest costing plan for single person coverage. The resolution would also provide for city-paid matching contributions of up to $100 per pay period into the deferred compensation program offered by the city. So the recommended actions for the council tonight are to hold the public hearing and receive any public input, introduce for first reading by title only the ordinance amendment, and consider adopting the proposed resolution.
Okay, thank you. Does council have any questions of staff? Councilman
Yes,
Berg.
I do. Thank you very much. Thank you for the report and a couple of questions. If this was approved, would this be an automatic thing that would just be added, or does a council member have to sign up for it? How would that process work?
Yeah, this action would enable council members to be eligible for the health insurance, but they would have to affirmatively sign up for and opt into and elect health insurance or vision insurance and dental.
So the key term is eligible for. It's not an automatic thing then, right?
That is correct, Councilmember.
Okay. So if you don't apply, even if you're eligible, then you won't get it.
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so I have a follow-up question to Councilman Berg's. So if you don't get that benefit, does it come to you in any other way? I mean,
That is not part of the proposal. The proposal is to allow council members to be eligible for the benefit and to provide a premium subsidy, but that there would not be a different form of compensation.
okay. Any other questions?
Yes. Yes, I do. Yeah. Thank you, Madam Mayor. So thanks for this report, Mr. Peretz. The matching contribution on the deferred compensation, was that at the rate that it was when these benefits were suspended?
Thank you for the question, Mayor Pro Tem. We found that the city's policy, this is consistent with the prior city policy. We did find some discrepancies in our past practice and application of that policy, but the documentation we were able to locate was that the $100 matching contribution per pay period is consistent with what the policy was.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments? Okay. Does anyone who wishes to address the council on this matter wish to come forward? Okay. Does staff have any further comments? Is there any further discussion? No? Okay, then we'll go ahead and close the public hearing at 7:48 p.m. And we have before us a recommendation to introduce for first reading by title only, waiving the reading of the full text, recommending adoption of an ordinance of the Council of the City of Port Hueneme, California, amending Article 2, Chapter 1, Section 2010 of the City of Port Hueneme Municipal Code relating to councilmanic salaries, and 3, adopt a resolution providing health, vision, and dental benefits and matching contributions to the city's ICMA 457 deferred comp plan to members of the city council. May I have a motion and a second?
Move to approve the ordinance and the resolution.
A second?
Second.
Okay, and may I have a roll call vote, Madam Clerk?
Mayor Pro Tem Munoz-Schnapp,
Yes.
Councilmember Rollins,
Yes.
Councilmember Berg,
Yes.
Mayor Hernandez,
Yes.
and Councilmember Gama is absent for the record.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Assistant City Manager Peretz. Thank you very much for your report. Okay, we're on to item 9, continuance of a public hearing to a date certain on introduction of an ordinance amending the Port Hueneme Municipal Code pertaining to development standards, so D missing, for accessory dwelling units. We're now opening another public hearing at 7:49 p.m. This hearing will be continued to a date certain of April 20th, 2020, but public testimony will still be considered for this noticed public hearing. At this time, does anyone from the audience wish to address the council on this matter? If so, please come forward. Yes.
May I make a comment for the public's benefit? The opening of the public hearing tonight allows public comment. If it's closed tonight, the council is not legally obligated to receive any further comment on the continued date. The council may, if they wish, but if there are people present who really want to speak on this matter and are thinking that they will have that opportunity next time, then they should speak tonight.
Thank you. All right, well, any comments from staff?
Well, just real quickly, so the reason why we're requesting a continuance is at the 11th hour, we had everything ready to go, we thought. But the state has actually, as you may recall last year when we went through this process, the state came down with a bunch of new regulations, and this time around, they really came down, and we have 3 sets of regulations that actually we've decided we need to look into a little bit further, both my office and the city attorney's office, to make sure that the ordinance, when it does come before you, provides as much local, basically enforcement protection as possible. The state's planning on taking quite a bit of that local housing ordinance protections away from us, and we just want to make sure that we maintain as much local authority as we can.
All right, so we'll go ahead and close the public hearing with caveat, this is the last opportunity for people to comment on this item. We have before us a recommendation that the City Council open the public hearing, receive testimony, and continue the public hearing to a date certain scheduled for the regular City Council meeting on April 20th, 2020. May I have a motion and a second to continue the public hearing to April 20th?
So moved.
Second.
And may we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Berg,
Yes.
Councilmember Rollins,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Munoz-Schnapp,
Yes.
Mayor Hernandez,
Yes.
and Councilmember Gama is absent for the record.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Stewart. Okay, moving on to business items. Public Works, item number 10, City Sidewalk Inspection and Maintenance Program. Mr. Villafana, you're back up.
Good evening again. You've been provided in your packet tonight a copy of a PowerPoint I'm going to be going over. And for the audience, there's copies of this on the table at the back. And at council direction, Public Works had prepared, in compliance with JPIA recommendations, a sidewalk maintenance program handbook, which you all have copies of in your agenda. And again, this is available for the public at the on the table in the rear. And Christy, would you dim the lights just a all right. Our sidewalk inspection maintenance program. The purpose of is to inspect the city sidewalks and to report and schedule repairs for all hazardous conditions and to minimize the possibility of injury to our residents and visitors. And our program will have sidewalk inspections done on an annual basis. Background, a successful sidewalk maintenance program is just as important as a street maintenance program. Sidewalks are a conduit to connect our community. They are the highways for the pedestrians who travel through our community. The sidewalk maintenance program is intended to prevent trip and fall incidents due to aging sidewalks, uplift of roots, and ground settlement and other issues that affect the sidewalk. Sidewalk Inspection and Maintenance Program Handbook. We prepared a handbook that will be available to the public. We will be putting it on our website. And this presentation is just a brief recap of that maintenance program. And again, it's available in the back of the room. And it is in compliance with JPIA. Sidewalk hazards. This is what we're going to be looking for. In compliance with JPIA, all inspections shall document the following situations. We're looking for vertical displacements that exceed 3/4 of an inch. These will be documented and evaluated and scheduled for repair. Any displacement less than 3/4 of an inch will be noted and evaluated for possible hazards. At each location, we're going to provide a rating of 1 to 3, with 3 being the most severe condition. Walking inspections by Public Works staff. Our inspection priorities are as follows. We have 4 schools, and this is high priority. We have children, and that's a high priority. We have a number of senior residences in our community, the Mar Vista and Hueneme Bay areas, the parks, and then the arterial and high foot traffic areas. The city sidewalk inspection will be conducted by city staff. It'll be done on an annual basis, or if there is a hazard reported. And that map just breaks up the zones, which will help us to record which zone the hazard is identified in. That's why we've included that map. And here's the form that we're going to be using, and this is a form very similar to what the JPIA uses. Once a hazard is identified, Public Works will place a temporary cold patch to ramp over the vertical displacement. We'll spray it with reflective paint to make sure that the hazard is visible, but we will have put a cold patch there to mitigate the vertical offset. And you can see our street crew doing that in one area. And who is responsible? The property owners are responsible for the cost of maintenance and repair of the driveway approach and adjoining sections of sidewalk adjacent to their property. Basically, it's the driveway and the panel on either side. And this is consistent with the California Streets and Highways Code section and the existing Port Hueneme Municipal Code. And the city attorney is doing some clarification work, and I believe in the next council meeting we'll be coming back. Is that correct, Mr. Green?
Yes.
All right. We've worked with their office and been very helpful. The diagram there just illustrates what is the responsibility of the homeowner. The driveway and the one panel on either side. And at the bottom of the slide, all other sections of sidewalk will be maintained by the city. The options for repair or mitigation, you can grind it. The city will grind, and if it's not a severe vertical offset, or we have remove and replace. And recently, Public Works staff has done these repairs. We did 2 near our museum, another one on Port Hueneme Road near the Hueneme Pharmacy, 2 around the senior apartments at Mar Vista, another one along our bike path north of Surfside Drive, and those are just some pictures of the completed work. That ends the presentation. Are there any questions?
Any questions for
Yes.
Mr. Vellapun?
Thank
Go
you
ahead,
very
Councilman Byrd.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. How long will it take for staff to do their, is it annual inspection? How long is it going to take to do an inspection of all the sidewalks?
We anticipate less than 6 months, somewhere in the range of probably 2 to 3 to go through it and thoroughly do it. We've already started it, so we already have a jump on it.
So every 6 months, and then you rest for 6 months, and then you do it again every 6 months.
Right, we're going to be doing it. And then if there's any, of course, we also, when we're in the field, and we're in the field for water line repairs, et cetera,
Sure.
we are not ignoring the sidewalks. We take a look at it. And I routinely walk Miranda Park, I'll walk part of the city, we'll drive by. So we have eyes on the city sidewalks more than just the formal inspection. But we'll be doing the formal inspections, a minimum of once a year, where we document all the locations. But we keep an eye on the critical locations routinely around the schools, because during the school year, we're monitoring the striping of the crosswalks. And we'll repaint those crosswalks several times over the course of the year. So while we're there, you can rest assured that we're going to be looking at trip hazards on those sidewalks and path of travel for students. The same way when we're out there doing a water line repair, if we're noticing that there's a crack or uplift in the sidewalk, we're going to note that. As the slide said, we have the annual inspections unless something is reported. And that report can come from a citizen or it can come from a staff member. So we do have eyes out there, and we will be making sure that we continue to monitor it when we're doing other duties. Our landscape crew, if they're out there trimming a tree and they notice, well, hey, we've got a trip hazard here, they're going to report it back to myself or Charles Cable, the principal engineer. So, we will have more than just that routine maintenance, but that's when we're going to be documenting it.
Councilwoman?
Wait, I think he still continues.
Thank you. I imagine, though, that we're not going to be able to make all the repairs that are going to be needed after a 6-month inspection in the following 6 months. There's just no way to get to every spot, I would imagine. Or you think you can do it within a 1-year period, inspect for 6 months, and then repair for 6 months, and then inspect again?
Well, we have several options on that. We're going to identify, obviously, the most critical locations. As we illustrated, our priorities
One, two,
are around
and
the
three,
schools,
and prioritize, yeah.
the schools, the senior centers. We're already doing that.
Yeah.
And then the parks. Tonight, the council just awarded a contract to J&H Construction to do the repairs at Miranda Park. So we're already on top of that. This is the formalization of a program that is already in implementation to some degree. And what we have available to us 2 options. We can do some of the repairs, which we did with city staff. The bike path was done with city staff. The work on Port Hueneme Road near the pharmacy and the museum was done with city staff, our street crew. The work on Miranda Park is going to be done by a contractor. And the funding for that, anything within the road right-of-way, the sidewalk along the streets, that is paid for, funded with gasoline tax money.
All right.
So that is, and I've earmarked $150,000 a year to maintain the sidewalks. And very fortunately, as I had spoken before previously at one of the meetings, is that very gratefully the public did not repeal Senate Bill number 1. So we have more gasoline tax coming in to maintain our roads and use a portion of that to maintain our sidewalks. And then with respect to Miranda Park, the council authorized in the capital improvement program $150,000 to start sidewalk repair in parks, non-right-of-way areas. So the Miranda Park project is the first project to be funded out of that CIP program that you previously authorized.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Villafone. I think this is a really smart thing for us to do. We have one of the best streetscapes and one of the best streets in the county. And so I think hand in glove, making sure that our sidewalks are in good order is the right thing. Do we have any idea of possibly getting, like, saying, going into technology, this 21st century kind of technology and apps that we could have available for residents to let us know about possible conditions? Maybe, the crew came through like 6 months before, but they started to notice something. Is there a way where we can get some input from our community?
We're working with the city manager's office and IT to provide a better reporting method for the public, and that'll be forthcoming in the next several months.
Okay, very good.
Councilwoman Schnapps, we are, as soon as we get our communications manager on board, they'll be working on a 311 app, just like the city of Oxnard, where they can actually report these types of incidents via their cell phone.
That's awesome, thank
Nice.
you. I appreciate that.
So I have one last question, just to make it clear in my mind, is, so from the time that you do your inspection and you've prioritized your projects, how long may the community expect that project to be completed? Say you've got your top priority near a senior center. You've identified it in your walk around. How long will it actually take to finally get prepared from that point?
Well, once we identify a trip hazard, if you will, a Public Works street crew will go out there and provide a mitigating measure. They will be putting the cold patch there
Right.
to make it safe.
So that'll happen within a matter of days? And
I would say within a week.
Within a
We-
week.
We would be out there once it's identified. So we're going to very rapidly mitigate the trip hazard and then work it into a plan. Ideally, if there's several in that general area, it makes sense to try and do all that work at one time for a little more economy. So, but we would mitigate that as soon as possible.
And then the permanent repair work would be done within what time frame?
We're hoping to have it done within 30 days or less.
Okay. So you're not waiting till your inspection report is
No,
completed
no,
and
no,
then
no.
you start the,
No,
okay.
not at all, no. That's just the complete cycle. When we find one, when we find an issue, it'll be mitigated with cold mix, painted with highly reflected paint. A report obviously will be filed so that we can document that, and then we'll be working on scheduling a repair for that.
Thank you. Anything else?
Yeah, I was just going to mention in prelude to us bringing on the information manager, there is a process right now where you can report a concern directly to the website. Am I correct?
Yes, there is.
So while we're waiting for the 311, which is going to be excellent, in the meantime, people can report through the report of concern anytime they see a faulty sidewalk.
Correct, they can do that, and, they're always free to email myself and get a hold of me, so, yeah.
Okay.
All right, so this is a recommendation to receive and file an oral report regarding an overview of the sidewalk inspection and maintenance program. Can I please take a voice vote of approval? Do we need a motion on this? No? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And this brings us to council member reports, comments, and requests for future agenda items. We are going to get out of here early today, hopefully. Who would like to begin? I'm not, like, anything could happen between now and the conclusion. What's that?
Yeah, hold that one.
Yeah.
I'll go first.
Okay.
Yeah, so we look forward to a change or reorganization of Port Hueneme Water Agency. I have had the pleasure of serving as the chairperson of this agency for the last year. Every year, we consider then another organization to take on the helm of chairing it. So it goes between the city of Port Hueneme and the Channel Islands Beach Community District. And so they would be then next up. And so we'll do that in the upcoming meeting we have later on. We didn't have, well, I already reported on the Council of Governments action. CJPIA, there's openings for several people to fill some vacancies that are coming up on the executive committee. And the Point Mugu Regional Airport Authority hasn't met. But one more thing I wanted to mention is that I just want to give kudos to the city for what was done last Friday and over the weekend for the Alaska Memorial 20th anniversary of Flight 261 falling out of the skies. And we had just an incredible number of people, family members, friends, those that work in the airlines industry come out on Friday, and the city just looks spectacular. So thanks to everybody from the chief and our interim city manager, what he has done and his team, to Don Villafana and his team, to then Steve Gama and the volunteers, and just everyone did a remarkable job, and the city looked just
gorgeous,
so wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
And some of these folks, I don't think they've been here since year 1 or 2, or maybe have never been here. And they certainly got to see just this beautiful city along the ocean, to welcome them with open arms, to be here for just their grief and their sorrow and their remembrance of loved ones. It was a sad event, but it was just an incredible, joint community thing, that we all had a part in, sharing in, and I just wanted to give kudos to the staff here for doing a wonderful job.
Yeah, I'd like to echo that as well, if I could go next. I have aerial footage of the beach that I'm excited to show the Board of Supervisors tomorrow when they adopt a resolution for Alaska's 261 families. I'll be showing some of that aerial footage, and I hope to bring it back for our next council meeting, but it is just gorgeous, and it shows how beautiful our beaches are, and we should be very proud of the work that the staff did to make our city actually shine, because it just looks gorgeous. And then the footage also shows people leaving after the ceremony, and you could see this look on their face, like they were really glad they came. They were really glad that they were there for either grieving or reconnecting with old friends, but just you had this sense of satisfaction you could see on their faces as they were leaving. So thank you for everybody who was involved in that, and thank you to the city council members here who attended.
Two things that I recall is they allowed the family members to come up and read the name of their loved one that died in the crash. And the one gentleman that came up, he looked like he was in his early 60s, and he read off his mom and his dad's name, and he said that, this is my dad and this is my mom. And that really touched me, because that's how intimate it did affect these families. And secondly, we had the CEO of Alaska Airlines, who was not the CEO at the time of the crash, but here's this gentleman who was I think the VP of Finance at that time that the crash happened. On Friday, he delivered an apology to the families of those that were on Alaska 261. And these families have been waiting 20 years for this apology. And of course, the CEOs prior to him, they couldn't render that apology, but he did. And he broke down several times delivering the message to everyone who was there. And if you weren't crying about that time, you were crying at that time, because it was that sincere of a message. And this gentleman, Brad, actually stuck around till way long into the evening, and sunset was happening, and he was still present. And so that tells you just how deeply it affected the community. But this man is from a different cloth. He is an incredibly sincere, wonderful man that's at the helm of Alaska Airlines. Just wanted to share that.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, I just want to frankly applaud the mayor for a truly touching speech. I mean, I was really moved, and I felt proud to be a part of the city council, because I think it was really well represented our city, and it was an excellent speech.
I think that was the first time we were asked to ever speak, ever.
Yes, normally they don't allow, or don't invite elected officials to speak because this is all about the families. But because I was part of the lead response team and involved in this incident years afterwards, the 7 weeks afterwards, and then years afterwards, and now I'm mayor this year, they thought it would be pretty cool to have me come up and do that. So I was really honored to have that opportunity.
Yeah, I could tell it was truly heartfelt. I mean,
And one thing too is that I went to school with two folks, one from like elementary school through high school and another gentleman through high school. And these are two local people who actually had relatives who died on that crash. And so, you don't know who it's going to affect, but it's less than 6 degrees of separation sometimes. So it really did even affect this community that we call home.
Well, I can't add to that. No, it was a great memorial, that's for sure. It was a two-day event, actually. On Thursday, they took it was one of the Island Packers boats out to the crash site itself. And while they were out there, they were bombarded with hundreds and hundreds of dolphins swimming all around their boat.
Yeah.
So, anyway, very, very special. And it was a good two-day event. And after 20 years, they've really formed a lot of friendships and really made some connections there. So it's a unique group of people. So.
They also talked about that these families fought for real changes within the industry, changes within Alaska that has led to huge changes in the industry. And I was able to talk to somebody at the very end who is from Alaska Airlines, and he says that now they sit together as industry people and share best practices and share scenarios so that they all can learn from this. And this was not necessarily the case 20 years ago. And so what these families have done with Anna Root and everyone else taking the charge saying, we demand change. Maybe this was the justice, but we demand change to happen so that folks aren't scared to bring maintenance situations up. Folks are really empowered to do their job and not to be afraid of anything. And they also then, when they train new people coming up through Alaska, they take 15 to 20 minutes of each of those training periods and talk about this crash. Because they want everybody who works in the company to understand it. And so these families, it's not just remembering their folks, but making sure that it doesn't happen again. And that's what they have been able to do.
One of the things also that we were very proud of was when the NTSB first arrived here in the county on February 1st, 2000, there was a meeting of agency representatives with the NTSB, and the lead investigator was a man by the name of Dick Rodriguez, and he was a 30-year veteran of the Marines, and he was bold and loud and scary, and one of the agency reps stood up and said, we use the standard emergency management system here in California and here in Ventura County. Will you be part of that system? Will you be using that system? And he just blurted out, he said, no. He responded, no, we are not going to use that system. We're going to use the Flintstone method. We're just going to pound it out. But because of our organization and because our agencies knew how to utilize the standard emergency management system, we were able to integrate the NTSB into our organization and provide the support that was necessary for the 73 plus agencies that responded. But subsequent to the event, NTSB is now using the National Incident Management System. So this particular event affected a lot of different changes, unlike other types of aircraft disasters that we've seen occur. So a lot of good things came out of it, especially the relationships that we've built and how well our community appears to everybody. I mean, everybody just looks at Port Hueneme as a friendly city by the sea because we've embraced this community and we welcome them, and they feel that. And the hotel did this free luncheon for them, and that was fabulous. Even the hotel has taken them under their wings and
Lunch
cared
as
for
well
them.
as entertainment.
And entertainment as
Yeah.
well, yes. So a lot of good things happened on these 2 days, so thank you again. I had one more thing that I don't have any committee reports, but I do want to introduce a new student intern. And Andre, I know you're not expecting this, but I wanted to introduce Andre Harutarian. He is a former student of mine from Cal State Northridge. He's participated in 2 classes that I taught, and he needed an internship, a non-paid internship, so he is here to help us. Andre, do you want to just stand up so people can recognize you? So we have working on the development of a internship manual, a volunteer internship manual, which needs to be updated. He's going to be working on the strategic plan. He's going to work on a data project that I wanted to implement to collect and centralize city data. And he's also going to help me with the mayor's panel on homelessness. So he's got a number of projects. He's going to be helping our city clerk with her filing. And we're very glad you're here. And we hope that you enjoy your time with us.
You know, I did miss recognizing someone. So we have a longtime Port Hueneme employee, City of Port Hueneme employee that's retiring in a few days. Her name is Rita Turbeville, and she is a quiet soul that, you know, she's in the office but may never have attended out here. And I just really appreciate the hard work and effort that she's taken over the years, being here day in and day out, doing this stuff, even counting the protest ballots that came in today. She's still doing her work, but she'll be gone in a few days, and I just wanted to recognize her for the service that she's had to the community over the years.
Very
Thanks,
nice.
Rita.
Just a few things. I'll be attending the REACH meeting this Wednesday, the monthly meeting. The Ventura County Air Pollution Board. So my understanding is we're all going on various different tours of the facility at different times. But then also, the director is going to come out and provide a report for us.
You mean the Indy plant?
Yes.
Okay.
But he's going to be providing a report for, I guess, both the Indy plan and the sanitation as far as where we're at. And then finally, I know we've had a report a while back, but the Community Benefit Fund, I'd like, at least on our future agenda, to have an idea of how much money has been spent. Was it spent on the original plan? How much money is going to be spent in the future? And because as I read through the process, there's a whole plan as far as approving it, the port approving it, then we both approving a final plan together. So if we could kind of have a report in the future, that would be great.
Yeah. I also wanted to ask if we could add Mayor Pro Tem Munoz-Knopp to the City Port Standing Committee. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. Yeah. And RDP 21. Okay, thank you. I remember you did send that out. Thank you. And we had a great meeting with the port last week. It was a historic meeting.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to go a long way in building our relationship with the port. Okay. Do you have anything? Okay. All right. If there's anyone else in the audience who'd like to speak to the council, you're welcome to come up. If not, I'd like to adjourn this meeting in memory of Officer Nathan Martin from Oxnard PD, who was killed on his way home from work. And he was a school resource officer for Hueneme High. We had Hueneme High students at the memorial. on the 31st, and we were very concerned it would be very emotional for them. But we were very sorry to lose any officer in our county, but in particular, officers who work with our students are special. So I'd like to adjourn on behalf of Nathan Martin. He was a officer, resource officer, correct? Not a sergeant, resource officer. Okay, and we are adjourning to our regular meeting of Tuesday, February 18th, 2020, to be held at 6:30 in the City Council chamber.
And why is it Tuesday and not Monday?
Because we have a holiday on Monday. Okay. And we have a closed session on this Friday, which we just scheduled. So with that, I'd like to adjourn the meeting. It is 8:24 p.m. Thank you. Good. Yay. You know, when you think about all the stuff that